Hi, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Adrienne.
And this is Scandal Sheets. Hello and welcome to Scandal Sheets, the podcast that explores the scandals of the past along with the people and places associated with them. I am your host, Caroline, and with me, as always, is...
I'm Adrienne.
We're bringing you part 2 of our series on Edward VII, and Adrienne's going to do a little recap for you.
That's right. So we left you with a kind of a cliffhanger last week and introduced the Lady Harriet Mordaunt, and we do not know whether she had an affair with Bertie or not. By the time she came into Bertie's life, he was already a bit of a skirt chaser. He had a wonderful wife, Alexandra, and she was either oblivious to what was going on or giving him the benefit of the doubt. By the late 1860s, the couple had been married for almost 10 years and already had 4 children. Bertie reportedly said of Alexandra, quote, "She is my brood mare. The others are my hacks," unquote.
Great stuff there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how complimentary that is.
Yeah. Well, basically, hacks were horses that you rented.
Okay.
So, I guess in a way he was saying... She's important because she's producing the kids, and these others are just where I do my business.
All right. Well, so we can say that he was better than some royals who had a bad habit of forcing their wives to accept their latest mistress by appointing them to court positions. So Bertie did a pretty good job of keeping his women on the side. So that's something, I guess, if you're going to live that way.
Right. As Adrienne mentioned, we I left a cliffhanger last week with Harriet Mordaunt and her initial relationship with Bertie. We know that they first met when she was about 16, 17 years old. She was attending a party at Abergeldy House.
And how old was he if she was that young?
He would have probably been in his late 20s maybe by then.
So quite an age difference.
Yeah, about 10 years, which is actually not that much of an age difference to them.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Not as much as some of his later mistresses.
Yeah, it's fine. I was just wondering because teenager, it's,
Yeah, no, we're like, what? That's underage. Got a perv in the house. Anyway, they met in Scotland, and then they apparently hit it off so much that Bertie ended up inviting Harriet to Sandringham House, which was his country home. And then they began exchanging letters frequently, which would have raised eyebrows because she was unmarried at the time. But then after she married Sir Charles Mordaunt in 1866, she quickly got bored. Harriet began receiving Bertie during the 5 à 7, which was the accustomed time in the afternoon for assignations. I'm assuming that's 5 à 7 is 5 to 7.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, 5 to 7. So those were the 2 hours that you were supposed to get your banging in, apparently, according to the British aristocracy.
That's pretty specific.
So Sir Charles left London to take a fishing trip to Norway, and Harriet fell into an affair with Lowry Cole, who was the Viscount Cole and the future Earl of Enniskillen. And yes,
those are good. I like the name Lowry, and I love the word
Enniskillen. I know, right? I like it too.
Yeah.
But she was still seeing Bertie, at least as a friend, and that is who Sir Charles found at their house in the country when he returned early from his fishing trip.
Whoops.
Both Harriet and Bertie were outside admiring her new ponies, which she had purchased from Bertie's stables at Sandringham.
I was wondering if that was a euphemism.
So Bertie took the hint and beat a hasty retreat, and Sir Charles apparently dressed down Harriet right there on the steps in front of everybody, everybody being the servants. And then he shot the ponies dead right in front of her. He's a swell guy.
That's horrible.
I know, animal abuse. This scandal actually started leaking out, and Alexandra, Bertie's wife, got wind of it. So Bertie decided that a vacation was in order. So they took off to Denmark with 3 of their 4 kids in tow to visit Alexandra's family.
Right, because she's from there.
Right, okay. She's Danish.
Okay.
So once they were done there, they sent the kids to Grandma's, a.k.a. Queen Victoria, who, as you might imagine, wasn't much of a grandmother, since she wasn't much of a mother to start with. And then Bertie and Alexandra proceeded to go to Berlin, then Cairo, and finally to Paris. Now, while they were abroad, Alexandra became pregnant with baby number 5.
Oh, geez.
But she was not the only one who was pregnant. Back in England,
wasn't him, so
no. I don't know. By then, he was starting to get a paunch, so it could be mistaken. Back in England, Harriet Mordaunt gives birth in February of 1869 to a baby girl.
His baby.
Well, no, not his baby.
Oh.
Well, he didn't do that one.
Okay.
But she names the little girl Violet Caroline, which I actually kind of like.
I do like that.
I'll have to file that away.
Mm-hmm.
Sir Charles accepted the baby as his, though it was clear that she was conceived when he was out of town in Norway. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the father was most likely Viscount Cole, who Harriet had been knocking boots with. Following Violet's birth, Lady Harriet started acting kind of strange. She apparently asked the midwife, "Is she diseased?"
Oh.
And then Violet turned up with an eye condition.
Pink eye.
Well, her eyes were discharged, had this weird discharge out of them.
Yeah.
And some reports say that she was temporarily blind, but I mean, that would have been really hard to establish. Whatever happened caused Harriet to freak out. She reportedly confessed to the midwife that Sir Frederick Johnstone, a friend of Bertie's, was a fearfully diseased man.
Okay.
She began to believe that she had passed the venereal disease onto the baby. So she broke down and confessed it all to her husband, Sir Charles.
Oh.
Never.
So full disclosure.
Right.
Okay.
Which is never a good idea.
No.
And the conversation went like this. "Charlie, you are not the father of that child. Lord Cole is the father of it, and I'm the cause of its blindness."
Oh.
So,
wow.
Yeah, she went right in there.
Okay, well, why not? Just not mince words here.
Right. She then proceeded to claim that she was very wicked. So Charles was like, "With who?" And Harriet was like, "With Lord Cole,
Okay.
Sir Frederick Johnstone, the Prince of Wales, and with others, often and in open day."
Oh, so she didn't stop by just saying one.
No,
name that
she confessed it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, good talk.
And how did that end?
So, after ransacking Harriet's desk and finding 18 letters from the Prince of Wales, Sir Charles is pissed. And that's when all hell breaks loose. Instead of forgiving Harriet, Sir Charles files for divorce and names the Viscount Cole, Sir Frederick, and, quote, some other person as co-respondents, meaning these are the people who caused the divorce.
Sure.
Yeah. By some other person, he meant Bertie, but he didn't have the balls to really name him because he's the Prince of Wales.
Right.
So Harriet's family, who was very powerful, galvanizes around her. Because they're trying to protect themselves, because, I mean, they're pretty entrenched in aristocracy at this point in time, and they've got a lot to lose. In fact, Helen Forbes, Harriet's sister, and also a lover to Bertie, reportedly said, quote, "Our great object is to prevent anything being brought before the public." Harriet's family proceeds to have her declared insane, stating that she has been acting irregular since the baby's birth. So if she's insane, then she couldn't testify. And if she couldn't testify, then
She would be able to admit all of that.
Right.
Okay.
So all the...
So it wouldn't come out.
Right, exactly. So Harriet apparently aided this in being practically catatonic through all this back and forth regarding her supposed insanity. Her family doctors diagnosed her with puerperal mania, which is essentially insanity brought on by childbirth.
There's a mania for everything back then.
I know. It actually is a legit thing. Basically like an advanced case of postpartum depression.
Oh.
Yeah. But Sir Charles was not buying it, so he had his doctor declare Harriet sane.
Okay.
By this time, Bertie is back in England, and he's forced to get involved. Harriet is sent away to a remote villa in the country and is then examined by Bertie's doctor, who finds her insane. But this doesn't stave off the reality, which is Bertie is called to testify at the divorce trial, which would have been scandalous in itself that he was, a member of the royal family and was caught up in all this nonsense.
Plus, there weren't a lot of divorces, right? I mean, you kind of just didn't say anything.
Exactly. Actually, when one of the books I was reading about Bertie, they said the number one rule in the aristocracy was that you don't get a divorce. Of course, it was becoming more popular at this time, as we'll see later on in the story.
Because it's still, what did you say, 1860s?
Yeah. So there was what they call the Matrimonial Clauses Act of 1857, which reformed divorce, and it actually made it easier for women to instigate a divorce.
That's pretty early for all things considered.
But it was still pretty heavily favored in the man's direction.
Right, of course.
As I mentioned, this was a scandal in of itself. And so Bertie is actually forced to write his mother, Victoria, and tell her that he has to testify. Interestingly enough, Victoria supported him.
Really?
Yep. We don't have her response per se, but Bertie wrote back to thank her for her, quote, dear and kind words.
Okay.
And then poor Alexandra, she didn't believe a word of any of these allegations, and she remained very loyal to Bertie. Not that he deserved it.
Oh, right. So she didn't believe that
he'd ever been involved.
Said.
Yeah, that she'd ever been involved with Harriet.
Interesting.
So the court case opens in February of 1870, and of course it is open to the public. So the newspapers are lapping up every detail.
I'm sure.
Some even printed the entire proceedings, and which took up pages of the newspaper. Queen Victoria ordered that the papers be hidden from her younger children as the details were, quote, such as hardly to be readable for anyone and make everyone shudder that the world should be fed with such scandal. Harriet was declared unfit to appear, but that didn't keep Sir Charles from prevailing upon the judge to allow secondhand details to be presented to the jury. So apparently hearsay was not out as it is today.
I guess so.
Sir Charles was questioned regarding Harriet's friendship with the Prince of Wales, and he claimed that she was warned to sever the connection. Bertie's letters to Harriet were leaked to the press, but it actually aided...
love letters?
Well, just their correspondence, yeah. But it actually aided his case because these letters were so bland. As you know, you may remember.
Oh, so it wouldn't prove anything.
Right, yeah. We read an excerpt last week where it included details on Harriet's search for a lady's umbrella for Bertie.
Yeah, I remember it was fairly banal.
Yeah, very racy. So Bertie is put on the stand, and the lawyer for Lady Harriet's family asked if he knows Lady Harriet. The answer was yes, of course. And then he asked Bertie if there had ever been any impropriety between him and Lady Harriet. The answer was no.
But that was a lie.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he was visiting her, and in the Annals of History, Sir Charles's family maintained that she had an affair with him, while Harriet's family maintained that she didn't.
She did not.
So, yeah. Then the lawyer for Sir Charles had a crack at Bertie, but he actually declined to question him. And turns out that the Prime Minister may have had a word with him, encouraging him not to do that. Okay. Basically, the result was that the jury found Lady Harriet was indeed insane.
Wow. But this was for a divorce, right?
It was for a divorce. Yeah. They denied him the divorce because you can't divorce an insane person. Sadly, Harriet was confined to an asylum for the rest of her life.
That's awful.
I know. She died at age 58 in 1906, which was 5 years after Bertie became king. They basically said, that she may or may not have really been insane, but after being sequestered with a bunch of insane people, she went insane. So that brings us to the 1870s. Bertie was none the wiser after this incident, and in fact, his reputation took a real beating as a result of the Mordaunt case. He was booed quite frequently when he went out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So not
who
cool.
knows what the papers would have printed back
Exactly.
then.
A year later, rumors started that Lord Sefton, who was a racing buddy of Bertie's, was planning on filing divorce from his wife, and he was going to name the prince as co-respondent. This turned out to be a false rumor, and Lord Sefton sued the papers for libel. But overall, the once pristine monarchy was under attack. In addition to all this going on, there was a scandal regarding Queen Victoria's relationship with her Scottish servant, John Brown. So there was a lot of chatter about that. There's always been rumors that Victoria secretly married John Brown, and it would have been a morganatic marriage, which meant that as a commoner, he doesn't have any rights to be the actual consort of the queen. So he would never be a prince or anything of that nature.
Okay.
In fact...
but this is after
Albert.
Husband.
Yeah. Okay. She's been a widow for a while by now. In fact, Louis XIV of France, his second marriage to Madame de Maintenon was a morganatic marriage because she was technically a commoner. So they married in secret. It was kind of just...
That's interesting.
Yeah. There was
that frowned upon then?
Sort of, but I mean,